Welcome to Tiny Hands Big Dreams here in our off-grid homestead.
So we moved to Ecuador with all plans and promises of starting an intentional community.
Big plans.
It didn't work.
Big plans.
It did not work. And there's a lot of questions. I see questions every day on all the different forums and Facebook groups and things. The off-grid, the homesteading, the self-sufficiency. Everyone always asks, well, has anyone done an intentional community? Should I? Is it a good idea?
Yeah. It seems
like a beautiful idea.
It seems like you have the greatest faith in all of humanity. Look, I'm an optimist. There's like they say the two schools of thought. You either believe people are by nature good or people are by nature evil, and that's how you treat everybody. I forget the official psychological terms. At one point I knew them. I believe in general people are good. I will travel anywhere in the world. I find good people. I do. Do I believe that a community of other people, like-minded even, is going to work out?
I think it could. I would like to hold the space for it could. I think it is possible.
What's the percentage
I do not
chance?
think it is likely. This comes from experience. We have had an experience. So
maybe we should talk about our experience.
We're going to start with our story a little bit.
We have not actually ever told our real story of
This is still only going to be a glossed over version.
Yeah, we're going to leave out names to protect the...
No, we're going to leave out names and specific details so that we don't get any sort of backlash from anyone who may hold something against us, strangely enough. So, our story starts.
Our story starts back, we're going, how many years ago?
So many years ago. 7? Something like that.
We have the grand idea of like, we want a homestead, we want freedom, we want our own land. We're poor at the moment.
We were then.
We were then. The U.S. prices are just ridiculous. You know, I've moved around so much that I sort of like blew out of a hierarchical job. Like, I was doing really well in certain places, then as soon as you move, you're like low on the totem pole again, and you have to sort of, and then I'd move again and again and again, because moving is fun and interesting in life. But that meant we're poor. We want a homestead. We want some land.
We wanted freedom to do what we wanted.
Sure. And those two things, for financial reasons and for legal reasons, were not available in the United States.
So we decided on Ecuador. And when we decided that, I started, as I do, started poking around and like trying to find as much as I knew nothing. I didn't really even know where it was on a map.
The original idea came from, they gave shelter to Julian Assange when he was releasing a bunch of terrible things about what the government does, because they do terrible things and try to hide it. He's releasing it, and then they tried to attack, persecute, arrest, whatever him. The Ecuadorian embassy gave him refuge and gave him asylum, and they kept him safe. He couldn't actually leave. And I went, that's really huge to stand up to not only the U.S. Power structure, for an individual's rights, for journalism, I don't know many countries that would do that. And a little country like Ecuador gets pushed around by big countries a lot. So that was like, wait a minute. We don't know anything about Ecuador. Why?
Well, so there was that. There were a lot of things that sort of pointed us towards Ecuador. So I started looking for information, which there was nothing at the time. There's a little bit more now. There's not a lot. But there was nothing at the time. So I found this podcast where they were talking about basically wanting the same things that we wanted. And having a piece of land. They already had a piece of land. And starting, for lack of a better term, an intentional community. Where everyone could contribute their strengths. You know, what are you good at that someone else isn't? Can we all come together to create an entire community that gives you everything you need?
But still be independent.
Like, have your communal living or anything.
You'd have your own land, your own house, your own thing. but as part of a larger community, and the community itself would have a bit of structure and do sort of its own things.
So
it was a beautiful plan.
So we visited, we met people, we saw the land. We had every intention of like this is the forever.
We made all the plans.
Every plan.
And we said we have to go back because we literally like counted out the pickle jar of change to get our flight back. Not joking.
Literally.
We were down to dimes. Quarters all gone.
Yeah.
We said we need to come up with a plan. It's going to take us probably 2 years.
I think it took us 3 in the end.
Took us 3. We're going to buy a house, flip said house, totally rejuvenate it, sell it for more money.
We have that story too.
It's a good story.
It's a good story.
Sell it and fund our journey here.
Now,
we did that.
Our entire plan was only going to fund our existence. That was not supposed to buy a property. We needed a visa property. That
we're flipping a little property. We're not flipping
organized.
A mansion.
Yeah.
There's
We had agreements and plans in place. This was not just sort of an off the cuff like, we're just gonna go start like a commune.
We had continued communication. We had years of back and forth of plans of things of like.
So, I mean, let's talk about the plans for a minute. We're a little bit bitter still. I think we've ended up in a much better place in the end, but there's a few things where I'm like, there were plans. There was supposed to be a restaurant. That was
restaurant on the hill.
My restaurant.
Overlooking Loja.
Oh yeah, there were plans about everything. It was going to be all from the land. We had. I mean, I ended up writing up all of these plans of different steps along the way. Self-sufficiency plans. There was the duck fried rice patty, which was growing rice with ducks, and I wrote this whole plan up. There was a lot of plans. It
was beautiful. Like in between the plots was strips of community-owned land, which was like the organization, and that was going to be fruit trees and things.
Those would be all of our crops,
and the paths between all of the properties, and all of that like would be either a share for the people who live there, or then sold at a local farm store to help pay for the upkeep of all the grounds. There was. I mean, we had even
chosen our plot.
Oh,
we had started working on it. Once we got here,
we marked it out. We figured out the road in, the drive. Oh,
you're flopping. That's all.
Okay. We had done some water mediation of some swamp area. We'd done clearing.
Where all the different animals were going, all the things. Like we had figured out our house. We had drawn up multiple house plans.
Oh yeah.
This was very far into the process. Now, the reasons that was alarming.
They do it out of love.
I know, but you're shaking your microphone fiercely.
We were there. We have it, all figured out. We're working towards it. We rented a house very close to there, so we paid way too much.
We're supposed to be like a hub for the work.
Like we even paid for an extra yard, so like machinery and equipment and supplies could be staged there to move onto the property. Like we paid into this. This was
what we came here to do.
Right. This was the project. Some of the things we packed in the container specifically for that adventure.
Now we, just as a reference point, this was supposed to be with many other people, but there was one family that we were supposed to be doing this with from the beginning.
We
brought everything.
We were gonna anchor
to sustain both families,
which we could either call the seed
or the egg,
because that's our yin yang. Which was our container of we plop it down as a seed and it grows, or an egg, and it brings energy, it brings resources, infrastructure, and from there we start to sort of unwrap it and build outwards of other structures, water systems, roads, things, and a life support for the initial, totally off grid, the entire property.
Now I guess it starts with in an intentional community, you are bringing different people together. It's like a marriage, but way more people. Ew. Okay, not that. Ew. But also kind of the same problems as that. If you're being, like, if you're just looking at, like, okay, I've definitely been watching about cults too much. But if you talk about the idea of so many people trying to live not together, but within the same very tight-knit community. People are people. They're different. They have different ideals, different morals, different
backgrounds,
different cultures.
habits, different cultures. All of this plays against having a homogenous society.
Not all of those things being different are bad.
Going back to, what was it, Plato used to talk about basically as cities became more diverse, as people moved from all the other outside lands and came in, the city culture falls apart, infighting happens, it becomes less safe, and it degrades. This is a human sort of like condition. It just is. And there's different types of intentional, like there are intentional communities. There's tribes.
Now, see, I wouldn't call that an intention, but I suppose it is.
Well, I'm trying to like bracket all of the. So a tribe works because you are all part of the tribe. You have a shared.
Well, you are a. I mean, for one, you're the same race and culture. You just are in a tribe.
Likely family.
A lot of them, yes. So you have the same culture and moral. I mean, except for like your offshoot, you know, the weird black sheep of the family, but you have these same goals, you have the same way of interacting, communicating, eating, you're all mostly the same. So that works.
Yeah. But when you bring a lot of different people together, you have to sort of look at how it's going to fail. And it's like an exit plan. In a business plan, an exit plan is a standard feature. You're supposed to have that. If you look at the marriage divorce rate, what's the divorce rate? Like 60%, depending on where you are?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Ecuador is lower, I'm just saying.
Ecuador's a little better. It's pretty high. So now you have to realize things change, people go in different directions. People maybe didn't even actually totally want the thing that they decided to come and do. Maybe one of them did.
Well, so that's the other thing.
But now you have a whole bunch of these families, and if you realize half of them are going to get divorced in the next 10 years, things are going to change.
And that's part of it.
Fluid.
You are often not just bringing together single individual people. You are bringing together couples, families who have their own issues, because everyone has their own issues. And that means that you are then bringing all of those together. We have experienced that. We found ourselves in the midst of someone else's marital strife. Oh boy.
If you've ever had a business partner, you start to understand why most partnerships do not work. And any business school will tell you, do not have a partnership. It will probably end, and it will probably end in a way that nobody likes.
Or it was kind of like when I had a job and the couple that owned the business had been divorced, and you have to listen to both of them, and they both want completely different things and tell you completely different things, and are using you as some sort of weird go-between.
I had that in Tennessee. Same thing. The couple that owned the company, who both worked in the company and did different parts, had like some animosity things, separation, something got weird. Not really divorced because a bunch of kids, things, but we're going to date other people and act all weird and things and something, and then talk to you from both sides, but not to each other.
But then you have to somehow, make everyone happy. It was not going well. We were still completely all in. We still wanted to do this. All in. We're working all the time. It was the only thing we were doing. This also was a plan for our income. This was where we were living. This was our income. This was literally everything that was supposed to encompass like our lives.
So we brought a base, like, you know, the container full of tools and supplies and things to get us through a couple years, and enough money to see us through. But the entire plan was we were to be given
the land.
the original piece of property in exchange for our services of managing the project and doing the initial build out of it.
That all went so sideways, and
luckily
honestly,
there were huge delays up front
yes.
of, I don't know, a year.
Yeah, it was about a year,
and it just kept getting worse and worse, and things were getting
weird,
wackier and weirder, and we're like,
more
so
uncomfortable. Every conversation was weird. There were weird dynamics. I don't think there was a lot of honesty involved.
Oh, there was straight up lying, and there was. I remember one meeting where we just they said a thing that was a total complete lie, and we couldn't hide our face at that point.
Nope.
We're just like, you have totally just.
You've gone back on our entire agreement.
Like, that's it.
Like,
had we actually done this, had we taken all of our final resources and put them into this project and all of our things, we wouldn't have been able to leave.
Essentially, if we had gotten to Ecuador on the original timeline, which was like a year or two earlier than we did, because a lot of things happened in the midst of that. It was 2020 and life happened. If we had gotten here on the original timeline, I still think everything would have been great, and we would have gone through all of this. We would have been connected to these people and other people legally. Otherwise, we may have
all in on the project.
Property. We may have lost. I mean, I don't even know where we would have.
We would have been all in.
We would have used all of our supplies, all of our money, all of our time, and we may have had to start over with nothing.
We would have had nothing.
No, not
even the ability to sell the property we were on, because we didn't
own it. Now that gets into the legalities.
Yeah.
There were a lot of conversations about how we wanted to set it up. Now, we had from the beginning, and I guess it should have been a clue, we had disagreements about how the community should be set up. But you go in as optimistic people who are all excited, and you're
yeah, we can make it work. We can roll with it.
Someone else involved thought that there should be no rules.
Because rules suck.
I understand the concept of, we just want to be free and everybody, and it'll just work out and everybody will get along. I'm really looking at each other going, no rules?
At the time, we're living in a place where our neighbors openly burned all of their trash, all the plastic bags and containers and things, just in their yard in a pit, which just smoked then for the rest of the day of plastic fumes.
And this whole community and this land was supposed to be clean air, and
organic, pesticide. We're like, so maybe a little bit of rules,
because otherwise you just allow people to burn trash and use pesticides,
or blast music and do
3
things, or run a chainsaw repair shop, or raise 300 chickens next to your property.
So you can't have no rules.
Or have a dangerous animal like a dog that attacks random people.
Children that run around fairly. Or there are lots of things where you're like, well, you kind of need some rules.
Just like maybe just like a skeleton.
You gotta have some rules. But then who agrees on those rules? Is it everyone in the community? Because are you ever going to get everyone to agree? Or are there people that are in charge that make the rules? But then you get a weird hierarchy, which causes issues.
Many will argue in politics that the most successful form of a government is a benevolent dictatorship. There's not all the infighting and the things and the problems. There's a dictator, but they're a good person. These have existed.
You have to make sure it's a good one.
These have existed throughout time, but there has also been terrible ones. Just looking through some of the ancient histories of there have been some amazing dictators that were good, honest, rulers of their people who just tried to honestly do what's best for everybody, they were a non-selfish public servant, and their entire civilization thrived. But you had to have that one good person, and everything else is.
And you have to hope that one good person does not change.
Yeah,
as people do.
As people do.
So then, on the other side of we'll have no rules and everything will be great. There is a intentional community, not far from us, strangely enough, that is highly, how do I want to say this? there are very strict rules for existing there. And it's very strange, in my opinion. There's a lot of weird rules about you don't really own anything. And you're all like I don't even understand the legal part.
So if you buy property in Ecuador, you have to realize there's different ways things can be set up. There is straight up ownership. You get a title to your land. That's it. It's yours. That's what we have here. There are others. There is articles of direction, which sort of like you own it, but you don't for a long period of time. You can buy, like if it's a large property, you buy shares of the corporation.
That's what this is, yeah.
And then you own a certain amount of shares, which equates to a certain amount of land, but it's not like your specific land.
No, which then means who owns the land and can they just take it from you? And the whole land ownership is a huge issue in a community.
And when things get icky, can you sell it? And who's going to buy it if it's got icky all over it?
So the community I speak of is vegan only. Now, I'm not vegan. I think that saying that you can only live in this community if you follow these exact rules that are down to what you can eat, what you can grow, what you can do, I don't like that. I think that's
they have gone very, very specific on a lot of like lifestyle sort of choices beyond just the vegan part. And
now
there's a lot of them for sale.
Now, to play devil's advocate, that does mean that you are a much less diverse group of people. You have at least the same, whether we agree or not.
You're trying to only attract people that you would agree with, which would therefore make
a slightly more cohesive group.
Except they had the cohesive group seemingly of all the people who did agree, and now they're all trying to flee, but nobody wants to talk about why, but there's a lot of them for sale.
There's a lot of them for sale, and that's all I know. Maybe it's great. Maybe they're all coincidental, but I don't know. But
when we were looking at houses in different places, and we're like, wow, there's like 6 houses for sale in this cul-de-sac, and they're all pretty, and they're below market.
Back in the U.S.
Sure, back in the U.S. And then we're like, why? They're pretty houses. And then you find out that there's a gang.
There's a drug house.
Yeah, like literally, and nobody will touch them. You can't do anything. You say something, and they murder your cat. And like, I don't know. It's like, oh, and nobody can move because their house is worthless because there's this gang drug house thing, and even the police won't touch them. There's always that hidden, like, what's the hidden thing you're not telling me? And that's the sleuthy thing that you're generally pretty good at flushing out.
So back to the communities, the intentional community. I feel like you're going to hit me with a racket.
No, I love you.
I guess I don't want to be pessimistic and say that it is never possible and it could never work. But I don't know if I have ever seen it work.
I'll open it up to questions, please, if we're wrong. I mean, intentional communities, which is the new fancy name. They used to just be, there's
commune.
Communes.
Not that was cult. That's different.
That's different. They're all on the spectrum. Communes started out going back in, I don't know, the 40s, 50s, popular in the 60s. How many of them continue? One of the biggest ones, which was in Oregon, Washington. Sure. There's a bunch up there. There was only a couple that survived more than a decade, and one of them basically was a huge meth. Like, it had just gone super south.
Most of them go south in some way,
and
they dissolve, they degrade,
there's weird power plays things. People who are decent just like, I'm not going to argue with him, they'll leave.
Well, that's the problem. Is I feel like there's always going to be some sort of, unless you are trying to, well, I guess even if you are trying to all like have no rules and there's no one above anyone else, someone's going to try to be above someone else because that's human nature. I think humans need leaders. You can't all be a leader or a follower. It doesn't work.
Hence the benevolent dictatorship.
You have to have, I'm going to go off a little bit here, but if you look at the animal world, most animals, whether it's a tribe or a flock or a herd or any of the other words.
Even ants.
Even ants. There are leaders. Everyone has their jobs. You can't all follow if there's no leader, and you can't all lead if there's no follower. So, it doesn't work.
You can't have giant committees all the time discussing things for years on end, raising of hands of things of, well, I don't like that, and that doesn't include me, or that's this. Well, that
even
leaves
if
this
you
out.
try to do this from a democracy sort of point of view, well, that doesn't work either, because if you think about, you live in a community, and there's some decision to make that will affect everyone in the community, and you have a vote. Majority wins. Well, the majority now feels like they have won. They're higher on the social totem pole. And
Team blue or team red
has won.
Yeah,
and then the losers are bitter about it.
The sports ball or the politic.
Well, and then the losers are bitter about it because what they wanted didn't happen.
So now they are smited.
And now there's going to be weird interactions between them.
That's going to carry forward into future decisions that they may like, well, we're just going to do this because
or you're going to end up getting into weird, like, honestly now at some point they become gangs of like, well, we want this and we want this, and there's like weird wars. It degrades. Becomes
like, that's what you now have to talk about at dinner parties. Well, this thing's coming up. Like, how are you going to vote on that? Like, are you on our side or, against us? In
a perfect world, yes, everyone could get along and agree on things. And I think the idea of it is great because I'm tired. And sometimes being able to split up the work makes sense.
It does.
Like, you raise the pigs and we'll grow the plantains. I don't know. That has a good...
We are a community of 3. If we were a community of 1, we would be 3 times as tired. Imagine if you had to do all of the thing.
Well, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't have to feed as many people. So there is that.
Just the weekly pot of stew.
Mm-hmm. But there is something to be said for, and people talk about community sufficiency. I understand it. I think that there is value to the idea of it, because it is far more difficult and more work to do everything yourself or your family self. But that also means you're reliant on other people. You're reliant on them not failing or going crazy.
Dying, getting divorced, just deciding they don't want to do it anymore, being sick, things happen.
Or becoming a serious problem, in the worst case. Antarctica?
So I was in the news today.
We're both thinking the same thing.
I guess it was a research station, South Africa's research station in Antarctica is having some sort of crisis where someone has become violent and attacked the other researchers, and they're basically just radioing like, help, like, we're just a bunch of researchers.
No, they can't even radio. They've emailed people.
Oh, they've emailed.
And they're
Same
like,
thing.
please help. But they're cut off for the next 10 months.
With a tiny little research center where it's like not much bigger than the space station.
And you don't really get to go outside. You don't really get to
And one
leave.
of the people has become problematic and violent. Like,
okay, now that might be an extreme case, but that happens everywhere. Whenever you have a collection of people,
they were vetted, they were tested, they'd been in the program, they'd worked together for so long, like, that should have been not the problem, but yet it was. So these problems happen.
So to rely on other people on your land, whether you share it or not, is concerning.
If you relied on, say you like to have chickens, and you're gonna have all the chickens, and they're gonna make all the eggs, and then another neighbor is gonna do cows. So he likes cows. That's great. And you trade eggs for a certain amount of cow.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Great.
Everybody does what they want. Everybody's happy, gets what they want. Something happens. Dude doesn't take care of his cows. Half the cows die of some disease. And then one day you just get a phone call of like, yeah, I can't give you your meat order. Half the cows have died, and there's just none for you. You don't even have the opportunity to then like, well, I'll just go down and like scoop some out of the river for myself. No, like it takes time to raise a cow. You now have to emergency find some other answer that you weren't planning on, hit to your finances, your time, your thing, your something. It's a big disruption.
Yeah.
It works when it works, and when it doesn't...
Boy, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It's like love.
I say it's not that much different than a marriage. You are making a commitment to work together on a project.
When it's good,
life or community.
When it's good, it's good. It's great.
But boy,
when it's not good, boy, is it not good.
It also takes out everything around it. It just does. It's giant fireball. Takes out everything. And when you think about putting a whole bunch of marriages and families together in an area, they're all supposed to work together.
Oh my god! So we just watched. We didn't watch the whole thing because seppuku. There's a YouTuber who's decided to move to a place that he has no business moving to, and to start homesteading and doing all this thing way beyond his ability or comprehension. Beyond all that, which is, everyone likes a train wreck, or
it's an adventure.
Going to watch NASCAR because wreck. The person's wife is not into it.
It's clear.
They're going along with it, probably because there's some YouTube checks coming in, and that's just what the family is going to do and something.
Also, very often in a marriage, you make compromises for each other. I'm all for that. Not in your entire life existence.
Your entire lifestyle. Just I'll just give up all these things, something that's not going to end poorly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, intentional community.
Intentional communities. We get the question all the time. Oh, why this and that? Why don't you start a community, this and that?
Don't you need help? We've got that. And we're like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to rely on somebody else to help. And that might be a super pessimistic viewpoint. But
and we do stuff for our neighbors. We occasionally we sold a pig to one, and they help us out occasionally with some other stuff. When it's available, when it's offered.
Well, to be fair, honestly, the pig was more, we really need money for groceries. But they really didn't need the pig yet. We have to give them the pig this week. So we're like, okay, well, they gave us the money early and we held the pig because they weren't ready for it.
But they wanted the pig. They didn't want us to sell the pig because they wanted the pig.
Right then.
Works out.
It's great.
Works out.
We have a community. We help each other, but we don't depend on each other.
That's true.
If something happened where we no longer had one of them to depend on, it wouldn't affect us.
We're not attached to them in any way through any sort of documentation or
necessity of anything.
So
honestly, I think that
if they decide to up and move away, that's their choice.
And honestly, I think we dodged a bullet with the entire community.
We did.
It was incredibly difficult to watch the whole thing just burn.
And to watch somebody who we thought we knew had so many hours of so much interaction, so much, of watching them on podcasts and things and stuff, and to watch them just that whole face just twist, and you see
People
this
change.
Ugly other side, and you're like, oh shit.
People change, and that's just.
Sometimes people also play they say, what is it? You have 3 selves or 3 faces to a person. There's the one you show yourself, the one you show to inside you, outside you, and then to other people. There's
something like that.
Yeah.
You will start seeing the inside face of people if you are living within close proximity and working together. And some of them may not be so great.
Yeah.
So that's our thoughts.
That's our thoughts.
Honestly, I would advise against it.
So we took what little money we had left.
We said screw you.
We even we drew up another business plan to do a whole project, huge property.
We tried to work with other people.
130 acres.
We didn't learn that lesson.
Gorgeous. We had this whole beautiful business plan. It was really nice. We talked to some other people. They agreed to fund it. buy the property thing, something, something. And then
Again, people.
in the short time thereafter,
Yeah.
we saw that other face and we went,
Oh no, run.
and we saw like, oh, you're this, not, you're suing this person thing and something, you're talking this way about.
And again, marital strife. Every time.
You ever see people and they talk about, like, they're with somebody as a partner, girlfriend, wife thing, whatever, and they talk about them in their nicest terms, and then afterwards they break up, and then they're this horrible person and nothing was right, and they always did these. You're like, whoa, wait, what happened to, how did you?
At some point you were lying. I don't know which one, but you were clearly not telling the truth the whole time.
Otherwise you'd be like, yeah, it was great, but it just, it didn't work out. So, and
or you never really liked them. One or the other. Both are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
also be aware of anybody who, without telling you, habitually is stuck on taking different antidepressant substances to modify their personality to be pleasant.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a good idea.
Okay.
We say go it alone, and most people don't, and I get that, but
Builds character. Builds callous too.
so tired.
Wears out boots.
But I'm physically tired.
Sure.
I am not the level of like soul-crushing stress that I was for that year of will we, won't we, what's going on? There's no road. Nobody wants a road. There's this weird back and forth.
Interpersonal stress things about what's going on, and like the weird people back talking around each other.
Many anxious like messages I sent of like trying to like make everyone happy. Oh my god. No. We go on.
And we just said, yeah, we're going to take what we have left. We're going to buy whatever we can afford, which is not much. And we don't care. We're not working with anyone else. We will live on a postage stamp that's our own.
Yeah.
Screw you. And you know what? We did.
And
we have hard. A tiny little postage stamp of our property. We're way out of town.
30 acres.
It's small by Ecuadorian standards. Not even a rancho. And we did it. It's all our own. Nobody can take it away. It is ours. It is forever.
Yep.
And there we go. All right. And with that, if you haven't subscribed, please. We occasionally rant on other subjects such as this or totally unrelated. We have all sorts of fun, cool videos that we do from time to time. Stay with us. See you some more. And see you for the next one.